So welcome to Upping Your Zoom game. I've been exploring ways to improve my my video quality and my sound quality and my lighting over this pandemic period that we've all been experiencing. And I've learned quite a bit in my own sort of quest to get this nailed down. So I'd like to share some of that with you if I could. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mike Edding. I'm an adult services librarian here at the Hinsdale Public Library. And I've been here for several years and enjoy bringing programs to you on things like technology and travel. And we have one on kitchen tech. So stay tuned for those if you're a cook of any sort. So it seems like in today's world that we're more and more likely to be asked to meet virtually rather than in person. These kinds of meetings can take many forms. They could be like a video call with your son at college. It could be a virtual meeting with your coworkers. There are a lot of those happening. It could even be an online education program like this one. So in all these scenarios, we can use simple and cost-effective techniques to improve the way that we present ourselves to the world. There are so many things that are out of our hands in today's world. It's nice to have something that you can actually control. And this really is something that you have control over. So I'll talk about a number of ways you can enhance your video presence. And these are really widely applicable to any video scenario, even something like a virtual job interview. So what we're going to cover today really falls into four categories. We'll be talking about lighting, we'll talk about camera, audio, and your background. And within each of these sections, I've sort of grouped my tips into three tiers. So there's the basic level, which really allows you to get improved results without too much effort or expense. The upgraded sort of recommendations will give you even better results, but it could cost a little more. And overkill, which is where I tend to land, you'll get really excellent results if you follow these techniques that I suggest. And of course, in some cases, they do cost a little bit more. So the idea here is not for you to say, well, I'm an overkill person or I'm a upgraded person. You'll need to pick and choose which areas seem most important to you, or maybe you already have a good handle on your camera that you're using for this and you want to focus on lighting or sound. So it's all about what works for you. So I'll just be giving my perspectives in those three different categories. So are there any questions before we move on? Okay. So why should you worry about your video conference image? You might think basically people should accept you as you are, and they can see the real you, so they should be okay with that. Or why should I put any additional effort into this when it's already kind of a pain to do these virtual meetings in the first place? Well, there are a few reasons which come to mind in response to those. People subconsciously make snap judgments about us based on whatever information they have available to them. And that includes how you present yourself on video. In addition, if you can be seen and heard clearly, it really helps you convey your message more effectively, whatever that message might be. And when you have better audio and video quality, some of what we lose by being in a virtual meeting over an in-person meeting is sort of regained. People can see your facial expressions. They can hear the tone of your voice change. All of this is really important contextual information. And finally, if you use video conferencing for work, people will get the impression that you're more professional and polished if you follow some of these tips. So that's why you might want to care about how you appear in a video scenario. So I think we'll jump right in and start talking about lighting. So lighting is probably the most important thing you can do to improve how you appear in a video. Um, it really has the most potential to make the biggest impact, I'd say. And there are really a number of underlying factors which come into play with lighting. First, the amount of light. It's better to have more light than less light. The sensors in these digital cameras that we're using for our web calls are pretty small. And what that means is that there's going to be noise introduced into the image, especially when there's not enough light. But if you can get a copious amount of light, then even the most modest of cameras will perform better. It could be something like a large open window that you have daylight shining on you. That works fantastically well. But really, it's about the getting a sufficient amount of light. The quality of that light is important too. So if you have a lot of light, but it's the wrong kind of light, that's not great either. So what we want is a large diffuse light source. So something like a bare light bulb would be a poor choice because it's coming from one single point. But if you have a large picture window that's bringing in daylight, the area that's shining on you will provide a much more flattering light tone. So look for diffuse light. The number of light sources that you might have is also important. If you have one large light source, that's great, but you might want to consider having a couple. That can give you a better sense of depth on your features. So that is a desirable thing. And finally, color temperature is important. So for those of you who don't know, color temperature refers to how cool or warm the light source is. So the old incandescent warm white light bulbs might have been 2,500 to 3,000 degrees Kelvin. That's how it's measured in degrees Kelvin. Cool white light bulbs are something like 3,000 to 4,500 degrees Kelvin. And daylight from outside is around 5,000 to 6,500 degrees Kelvin. So most people will look their best somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000, but it's going to vary by person. Your skin tone will have an impact. All those things matter, but do keep in mind that lighting color is important. So when we get to specific recommendations, I'll talk about the basic tier first. So I suggest finding a large light source and have it facing you from behind the camera. What you don't want to be is backlit with a big window behind you because all your features will be dark. The camera isn't able to sense things quite as well as our eyes are. So like a window is fantastic. But if you need to use an artificial light source, try to make it diffuse in some way, as I've mentioned before. So if you have a lamp, you might make sure it has a lamp shade and maybe one that's kind of a neutral colored lamp shade, so it doesn't make you too much of whatever color that may be. You might also try, if you have a desk lamp, you could bounce it off of the wall that's facing you, and that would give you a big diffuse light source, kind of with the wall acting as that light. That'll take quite a powerful light bulb to do that, but it will give you good results. And the purpose here is to get a lot of light on your face. If you have sufficient light, it might actually feel a little uncomfortable to have that amount of light on your face, but it really does make a big difference, I've found anyway. So finally, when it comes to the light sources that are illuminating you, it's best to have them all the same color. It's okay if something in the background is a different color temperature, but if you have like daylight coming in and shining on you, you'd want to, if you're supplementing that with any sort of a lamp on your table, you might want to make sure that that has a daylight balanced bulb so things don't look weird. If you're going for an upgrade over the basic step, I would say getting a ring light is a really good choice. So these range in size typically from 10 inches in diameter to 18 inches in diameter. And the smaller ones can cost as little as like $25. The one that I have shown here is about $75. And what you get for that larger and pricier model is a more pleasing large light source. But a 10-inch ring light would do perfectly well in many cases. I would suggest that you look for a ring light that has adjustable color temperature. So some have filters that sort of snap on the front of the ring, and I don't really like those. I like ones that you can actually make an adjustment to the color temperature of the LEDs that these ring lights are using. So like the one that I have shown here, this eMart one, can vary between 3,200 and 5,500 Kelvin. And if you have that kind of a range of adjustment, you're sure to find something that will work for you. So when it comes to overkill, which is where I live, having two light sources facing you and sort of flanking the camera is a good way to go. If you're able to dim one of them slightly, that's even better, because you'll get some soft shadows from one side, and those are minimized by the slightly dimmer light on the other side. So two lights are great. Ring lights would work fantastic for this. If you have a couple of 10-inch ring lights or even 18-inch ring lights, that would be really good. If you want to go crazy, like I did, you could have something called a softbox, or a couple of them. And you can see my setup here, this newer LED softbox lighting kit. These lights are very large in their surface area, and they're very flattering, I think. And these particular ones, I've got a little remote control that I can adjust the color temperature. So I'll show you what that looks like as we go cooler. So you can see that I'm much more blue in this sort of setting. And then if I start to crank it down, I can get pretty warm. So you're sure to find something that works well for you if you have something adjustable. Many of them don't have a remote control, but mine just happen to. A lot of them have little controls on the back, or maybe on a cord where you just press a button and change the color temperature. So that's my specific recommendations for lighting. Are there any questions about lighting before we move on? Okay. Well, let's talk. Yeah. Go ahead, Janie.
Is it just a matter of trial and error? I mean, because a lot of times you come in, you're already in on a Zoom call and you see all the faces and you think, well, I'm so much darker. But is there any way to practice ahead of time so you know what you're going to present?
Yeah, what I like to do is when you first launch Zoom on your device, there should be an option to click on that says new meeting. So you can start a meeting where you're the only person that's in the meeting, and that will let you kind of see what you look like. And I do that before all of my presentations. I create a dummy meeting where I'm the only guest and tweak things so it looks good. That's a great question, though.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
There's yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. Well, my question was just, if you do have some light source, but it's on your side of your face versus straight on, would it be ideal to supplement it with a ring light or some other light in front? Or do you think just leaving it alone with the daylight on the side is best?
Well, I would say if you're looking for the best results, you really need to get something that's more in front of you. Um, so yeah, you could get like a 10-inch ring light and make sure it has that variable color temperature that I mentioned, and that should fill in some of those shadows that you're getting from the light or the window to your side. Yeah, that's a good question.
Or possibly, would you just use the ring light alone and close the daylight, with your drapes? Would that be even better?
Yeah, I mean, I would try them both to see what they look like.
Okay.
I don't know that the benefits you're getting from having a soft light to your side would be counteracted by having maybe two possibly different color temperatures, and that just might confuse the eye.
Okay.
So I would try them both, though.
Okay.
I mean,
How you,
or if there's a way to reposition your device so you're more facing that window, that would be even better.
thank you.
Sure. Any other questions about lighting? Okay. Well, let's talk about cameras. So this is obviously a subject that's closely related to lighting. You definitely need to make sure that your camera is doing the job that it's supposed to be doing and capturing kind of a realistic view of you. There are a couple things that we'll talk about with respect to cameras. First is the camera angle. The best way to improve your camera angle is to get it at about eye level or maybe a little above. And we'll talk about that in a moment. And we'll also discuss why you might want to consider getting an external camera. Even if you have a webcam built into your device, into your laptop, an external camera can have some profound implications for how it actually looks. Really, they can offer better image quality, and because they're separate pieces of equipment, you can position them to just the right angle more easily maybe than you could like a laptop. So for specific recommendations in the basic category, I recommend really taking whatever steps that are necessary to get your camera to the proper height. And as I mentioned, that is at eye level or slightly above. Pretty much nobody looks their best when you have a camera shooting up from your lap to your face, which is often what we see with laptop cameras. You get a lot of extra weight in your chin, and maybe you look like you have jowls when you really don't in real life. It's not a flattering look if you can avoid it. So even if you're using a tablet or a phone, there are usually ways that you can raise that up so it's pointing at you from eye level. It'll look a lot better. So a lot of people use like a stack of books, maybe they're library books. You could use boxes that you have around the house, anything like that to get it up to the right height. It's really an easy way to get a better image. If you're looking to upgrade from sort of the basic level, I'd suggest getting an external webcam. So during the early part of the pandemic, these were really hard to find, and retailers seem to be really raising the prices on these. But now supply seems to have caught up, and you're able to find these webcams again. So, of course, this needs to be in the same position as I mentioned before, at about eye level. If you are having trouble getting that to the right place, maybe it usually sits on your monitor and your monitor isn't quite high enough, you can oftentimes attach them to a tripod and raise them to the exact height you need. So in my opinion, if you're looking for a particular model, I really like the Logitech C920. It costs about $80. And it's really an outstanding, high quality, high definition webcam. It's pretty much on everybody's recommended webcam lists. It's pretty cost effective, though. I think at the beginning of the year, before the beginning of 2020, when all this started, they were about $65, and now they've raised in price to $80. But for a while there, you couldn't find one for under $100. The C922 model by Logitech is very similar to the C920 and would be a great choice. A lot of video game streamers use this particular model because it has slightly smoother, a smoother frame rate, which doesn't really matter for the purposes of video calls. But if you can't find a C920, I'd say a C922 would be a great way to go. Again, the C920 is about $80. The 922 is about $100. So you're paying more for features that you might not necessarily use. If you're curious about the overkill category, you might try to use a digital camera that you have on hand. As with the other two categories, you'll need to position it appropriately, and that might require a tripod to get to just the right height. I'd say that really a minority of digital cameras offer this kind of functionality, but during the pandemic, a lot of manufacturers made special software that allowed people to plug in their digital cameras and make them act as webcams. So it's worth checking out. I wouldn't necessarily buy a camera for this purpose, but even though you get quite a bit of improvement over even the high quality of the Logitech C920, you're going to spend a lot more for that benefit. So I don't know if it's worth it, but if you have one, it's worth trying out.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please do.
When for basic Zoom meetings, would you just use the basic camera? And then if you're doing a bigger presentation or whatever, because a lot of times this is just meetings that are on Zoom calls or book clubs or whatever, and I've just used what's on my laptop. But to invest in a camera, I'm assuming if you were doing a big presentation for a board meeting, it would behoove you to have a better camera.
Well, that is true. This is all about what you're comfortable with, what you think is worth it. So if you get the lighting right in your room, a laptop camera will do perfectly fine. You'll just get that much better results if you use an external webcam, I think. But lighting is the most important thing by far. So if you get that lighting right, you'll be in pretty good shape, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions about cameras or even lighting? Okay. Well, let's talk about sound. So the quality of your audio is really quite important. I don't know about you, but when I'm on YouTube watching videos on how to do something, if like the audio is really tinny or maybe there's echoes in the room, I might just skip that one and go to one that has a better sound quality. And I think that's not uncommon. It goes deeper than that, though. There's a study by researchers at USC and the Australian National University that looked at science information being presented. And when the audio was of poor quality, the speaker was viewed as less likable, less intelligent, and less credible. So we don't want people to make those judgments about us based on things like poor sound quality. So it makes some sense, I think, to take a look at how you're getting sound into the video stream. So what can you do to improve your sound? Well, you can control your environmental factors that might have extraneous sound coming in, and you might consider getting an external microphone. So some specific recommendations. At the basic level, I think the most important thing is to improve your signal to noise ratio. So you want your voice to be very prominent in the mix, and you want all the background noise to go away so that there are a few ways to accomplish that. First, you want to try to eliminate any interruptions that you might be having or expect to have. So let people you're living with know that you're going to be on a video call, and it's best if they don't interrupt you unless it's quite important. That may help or may not help to minimize any sort of intrusions. And next, you'll want to look for these continuous sounds in your environment that kind of drone, like things like fans and heaters and dishwashers and clothes dryers. These can all be heard on video conferencing if they're close enough to the microphone, or if your microphone picks up everything in the room, which some do. So try to eliminate that background noise. And one thing you could do is work in a sound deadened room if possible. There's an old podcasting trick to record your podcast in a clothes closet. You have all this fabric around you absorbing the sound. And that's not really appropriate for a video call, but you can see the general point that's being made, that getting something to reflect or to absorb that reflected sound so that they're just hearing your voice and not that extraneous noise, that would be great. Another thing that I've heard is you can place a bath towel over your table in front of you, and that can help to tame some of those reflections. Another approach you might try to use is software noise reduction. So in Zoom, under the audio settings, you do have an option to suppress background noise, and that usually works pretty well. I'd say don't overly suppress it, because when you do that, your own voice quality will become lessened. So just suppress the background noise to the degree that you need to. So try at a low level. I think there are 3 different levels in Zoom that you can try. There is actually a specialized application that will work across all of your video calling sort of applications. It's called Crisp, KRISP. And Crisp is designed to really intelligently look at all the background sound that is not your voice and try to eliminate it. And it's free for up to, I think, 2 hours a week. Otherwise, if you want to use it more regularly than that, you could upgrade to a pro account for $5 a month, which isn't too bad. And finally, I would suggest using some sort of a headset with a microphone. Something like this Apple one that I'm wearing has a microphone on it, plugs into the back of my computer and works great. But you could use one with larger headphones that has the kind of headset that swivels around and goes in front of your mouth. That would work great. Just getting a microphone closer to your face is really the key to get that signal up. An inexpensive wired choice could be something like the One More piston fit earbuds. And those are only $15 on Amazon. So you don't have to spend a lot of money to get upgraded sound. Speaking of upgraded, at the middle tier, we're looking at skipping the built-in microphone on your computer in favor of an even better external monitor than the one that you might find on your earbuds. I'd say the most cost-effective way to get good sound is to get a USB lavalier mic. I own the model that's shown here in the image. It's the Fifine or Fifine K053, and it's only $20. It plugs directly into your USB port on your computer, and you just clip it to your clothing near your sternum. And because it's, relatively close to your mouth, you'll get a nice full tone. It's surprisingly good for $20. I think something like this would be a good option for many people. Of course, we have to talk about overkill. And if you're considering something a little better than the Fifine K053, I'd say to get a dynamic USB microphone like this one here that I'm using. This is the Samsung Q2U, and that's only $70, so not that much more. You can mount this on a little stand that comes with it, so it could sit on your desk and point towards your mouth. But if you want to get even better sound, you'd put it on an arm like I have here. This is mounted and it can swivel in various different directions. And if you point the microphone towards the corner of your mouth, you'll avoid those annoying P sounds that can be, they call them plosives, and nothing more than an explosive P to wake you up out of a meeting. So the Samsung, excuse me, Q2U is a really fine microphone at $70. So are there any questions about sound quality, improving sound? Any of my recommendations? Does anybody have an external microphone of some kind that they're using now?
No.
Yeah, it's worth thinking about, because people do kind of listen to your sound and wonder if, you know, what's going on over there. I can hear the dog barking in the background or what have you.
I do use the external microphone because sometimes just with some of the groups we do like just music and somebody's playing a guitar, or if you're doing a karaoke and you want to pick up, you don't want to suppress the background noise because that's really
yeah.
music. And so the external mic is helpful for that, to kind of get the music you're playing along with your singing or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, that's a great point. I hadn't even thought about a scenario like that when you actually want your background noise, which is music, to appear. Yeah, that would work great if you have the right kind of microphone that can pick up from the whole room. Some of them, like this one that I'm using, it tends to be pretty directional and only pick up sound from in front of the mic towards my face. But a more universal pattern can be great. So Chip's saying he uses Apple's earbuds with a microphone, and yeah, I think that can work quite well. It certainly is an improvement over kind of the reflective sound that you'll get from using the built-in microphone on your laptop, or even your webcam might not have that great of a microphone. Any other comments or questions about audio?
Just a question in general, Mike. Did you say that you were going to provide us either this slide deck or something so we didn't have to take pictures or write it all down, or should we be writing it down?
Yeah, I am going to probably tomorrow. I will send out my complete notes in a PDF form to everybody who registered.
Thank you.
So yeah, you don't need to be furiously writing down. Just if you want to jot a few things down before then, that's great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay. So let's talk about your background. Really, when it comes to background, it's not rocket science. You want something that's pleasing, but not distracting. So to get to that point, you should give some thought to actually what is appearing on camera behind you. And you may not want your whole room to be displayed for your audience, depending on who the audience is. And you might also consider using a virtual background, like Zoom has the functionality for where you can upload a picture. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So let's get into some specifics in terms of recommendations. So at the most basic level, if you're sitting in front of a neutral colored wall and you remove all the clutter from maybe the top of your desk or your table, and if you put some distance between yourself and the wall, that will give you some pretty good results. The idea here is you are the star, not your room. So you can, if you have too much color maybe going on in the background, that could be distracting depending on what you're going for. So that's sort of the very basic level. If you're upgrading that a step, I'd say you should consider your audience when you're choosing a background. If you're If it's a work audience, your colleagues, maybe you don't want to show them your life. You just want to have a pretty simple background behind you, something minimalistic, something just tidy. But if it's more casual and maybe you know these people well, it's okay to give more cues about your life. Something that expresses your interests can be good. Like if you're a cook, you could set up with the kitchen as a backdrop for you. Tasteful decor and art can really be a nice touch. You just don't want it to be too prominent. You want yourself to be the most important thing in the scene. So when it comes to overkill, you could invest in something to have some background light. It gives a little bit of a sense of space. So you're not just in a very a flat environment. Something with some depth can be nice. So dim background lighting can be good. If you don't have a way to get that lighting onto your background, I'd say something like the Pixel G1S, which is $70, can really provide some nice ambiance. So this is the Pixel G1S right here, and I'll turn it on for you so you can see kind of what it can do. So it's pretty bright, but it's not just white. It actually, I can change the color to be something warmer or cooler, just like a nice ring light would do. But it can also do other colors in the spectrum. So you could have pink or magenta or blue or teal in your backdrop. So this has a little stand that I think you can see here that you can use kind of like a little kickstand and sort of shine it on the wall, maybe behind you, whatever sort of accent color you might want. This is certainly not necessary. It's just a fun thing to do if you feel like it.
I have a
And
question.
again, yeah.
Is that what you were using before? Because you have a different background now than what you started with.
The way the background I think is working is am I not transparent on the slide basically?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's going to depend on what slide I have behind me. I think in some of the other ones it was red and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this didn't impact that. I didn't have this on earlier. But
is that an app that you could do that with though? If you don't want to, you mentioned try the Zoom virtual background, but I think you have to pay for that Zoom then.
I think on my free account I've done a virtual background. It's just in your video settings. If you look on the bar on your screen that says, in my case it says stop video, but to the right of that there's a little up arrow. It might be a down arrow on your screen, and there you can click on choose virtual background. So you should be able to do that even with a free account, I think.
I tried it, but I must have just not punched the right, right.
Well, I believe I have successfully done that. So
Okay.
You might try another time to see if that can work. If you're looking for backgrounds to use, there is a website called Unsplash, UNSPLASH.com, that has photos of all kinds. It has basically community generated stock photos, but it also has a lot of good backgrounds. So you could find a nice landscape photo, a sunset. You could find just a nice patterned, a nice pattern that you could use as a backdrop. And that's what I've done in many cases. So I'd suggest giving that a shot. I like virtual backgrounds a lot. You probably don't want to get too crazy if it's a business meeting, but they can be fun, and they can, if you don't have really a suitable location in your home, to act as a backdrop, a virtual background can be great. If you're having some problems with Zoom and its virtual backgrounds, and in particular, it usually happens when, say, you're raising your hand, and if you their software can sometimes make your hand disappear, or maybe around your hair, you're not getting good definition. It's very fuzzy around the edges of your body. It's software struggling to determine what's the background and what's not. So if you're having those problems, in the overkill category, you could get a green screen and work in front of a green screen, which I actually am doing now. I have a green screen on, and portable green screens, they're usually less than $100, and they fold up when they're not in use. But I would say that's definitely overkill. But in case you're wondering if there's anything that can be done about that weirdness around your hair or your arms or your hands, you could get a green screen and that will improve it.
Interesting. I was wondering also one other thing, the distance between the wall, if you just have a neutral wall behind you,
Mm-hmm.
How much distance do you think would be ideal?
I think somewhere between 4 and 8 feet, something like that would be good, just so you're not right up against the wall. Often if you're right up against the wall, maybe 2 feet away or so, you'll get really harsh shadows that appear on video from whatever light source you have in front of you. Whereas if the background is further back, those shadows diffuse out really nicely. So 4 feet would be great. Even 3 feet would be perfectly adequate, I think.
Thank you.
Any other questions about backgrounds or that sort of thing before we move on to general tips? Okay. So in terms of some other tips, it's important, I think, to make eye contact with the actual camera and not just look at your screen. It's very tempting to look at your screen and see what you look like and see what other people are looking like. But if you're the one speaking in particular, if you can look at the camera, I think it gives a better, more engaged effect. And speaking of appearing engaged, I think if you sit up straight and maybe even lean forward a little bit, it can make you really seem eager to learn or very interested in what the other person has to say. So that's a good thing as well, I would say. We've talked about earbuds a couple of times, and I think it probably works better if you actually listen via some sort of headphones rather than listening through your computer speakers or other speakers in the room. Zoom is able to cancel out a lot of the echo that you might otherwise get, but when it does that, it, I think, decreases the sound quality of your own voice. So if you have the only sound from the meeting going in directly into your ears, I think it works a little bit better. So if you have the ability to use a wired internet connection versus a Wi-Fi connection, I think that's fantastic. You'll get better bandwidth and you'll have less trouble with the image appearing blocky or, low resolution, like sometimes on Netflix, it looks kind of blocky and indistinct. If you have a wired internet connection, you're less likely to have those kinds of problems. Just a quick note about appearance. I think if you're clean and tidy and look somewhat put together, that's better than if you look like you just awoken from a nap. Some of us may be in that situation, but I don't think you have to go overboard with this. Just try to look presentable. That's the main thing. So moving on to the next slide, when it comes to clothing selection, it's been this way for a while, but in video, you want to avoid small patterns and stripes. They can create these unsightly moire patterns, these video artifacts where it actually looks like your clothing is moving when you shift a little bit in your chair. So try to avoid those small patterns. Big patterns are fine. Solids are definitely safe when it comes to this sort of thing. In terms of the kind of color that you want to use, you want to pick something, I think, that is contrasting from your background. So if you have a blue background, don't wear a blue shirt of a similar hue or tone, because you'll just blend right in. Contrast is good, but too much contrast is not good. And specifically, I would say to avoid white and black, because the camera isn't really able to pick up fine details in shades in your white shirt and your white buttons and your white pocket on your shirt. It'll all just look like one big white blob. And the same is true for black. You won't be able to see any detail at all on the shirt. And plus, it can make you look a little washed out. Very few people look great on camera wearing black. And of course, consider something that is flattering to your complexion. Everybody is different and everybody looks better with different colors, things that work better with your eyes and that sort of thing. Take all that into consideration when you're picking what to wear. And you also will want to avoid noisy clothing and accessories. So if you have jewelry with which sort of jangles, that's not great, because that can be distracting for other people. Or if you have a nice wool jacket that's kind of coarse, if it makes a sound when you move around in your chair, that may not be a great option. So just keep that sort of thing in mind. And finally, a note for eyeglasses wearers. If sometimes when you are, maybe your only light source is like your computer monitor, that can reflect right off of your eyeglasses and be distracting. So if you move your light source up, maybe on a higher table, or you could actually prop it up on some books or that sort of thing, just for the purposes of the meeting, that can reduce those reflections that you get from your eyeglasses. So that's really all of the prepared remarks that I have. If anybody would like to share any of their tips for virtual meetings or ask any questions, now is a great time to do it. So I answered all your questions.
Mike, can I ask a question? I'm used to doing the gallery view, and on my screen now, I don't see a way to get to that, to see who else is in the Zoom meeting. Is that something you set up differently, or why is that?
I'm not sure why you don't see that, Janie.
Because when I click, usually it shows up as sort of a grid, but there's no grid here. And when I click on the participants, it just gives me a list of the people's names.
It could be because I'm in this slide sharing mode. So I'll turn that off and let's see if, let's see.
Mike, I'd like to comment on that.
Yeah.
It's up at the top of the screen. There's 4 bands up there, and you can just switch to one of the bands to get that.
You see that, Janie?
Now I got it, now that you switched it.
Okay, great.
Okay. There.
Any other questions? Yeah, the gallery view is nice to be able to see who's in this virtual room with you.
We're talking, it's nice.
Well, I'd like to thank all of you for coming tonight, and I hope you got at least a couple things out of it. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me or ask them now.
There is
I was just going to make one comment.
Yeah.
I went to a memorial service for a man who does world tours. And when he passed away, they had a memorial, and there at the end, you just saw your screen and maybe one on either side. And at the end, they said, I just want you to know that there are 35 screens that are all listening to this, and they were all over the world. They were from Rome, from Turkey, they were from India. And to me, that's amazing that we were all there hearing the same thing. And the man's widow was right in the middle, so we could see her. And to me, that's just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, that's the power of something like a
Yeah.
virtual meeting. It erases all those geographic borders between us, and we can have a shared experience. I mean, it's not a perfect replacement for in-person kind of contact, but it has its own advantages.
Yeah, all those people would never have been able to gather together.
There's a question in the chat window about how did I show my video embedded in my slides. So this is something that is I think a new feature to Zoom. And when you click on the share button, if you want to share your screen, there's the general screen that comes up, but there's also, I think, 3 tabs at the top, and one of them is advanced. And within the advanced tab, if this makes sense, you'll see something like share your slides. So your slides are acting as the background, and you can just advance them like you normally would any other kind of presentation you have, but it plops you on the front of it. It was something that I tried tonight for the first time. I kind of liked it. What did you guys think?
I thought it was great.
Yeah, I thought it looked great too.
Oh, thanks. So anybody have any comments or questions?
It was very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, great. Well, I'm glad I see your guitar there, Dottie.
Yeah, that's why I know that part about the sound, because we did try. I'm retired, so I don't have business meetings, but it's great to be able to share music, and it was a lot of trial and error to get it to work.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, it can be a little tricky.
And you can't play with somebody else. You have to each do your own thing, and everyone else is muted.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for coming. I'm reachable via email, and I'd be happy to talk about any of this stuff at any time with you guys. So have a great night, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.